So you're telling me you're gonna take all this time and effort to pull the stock 2.8 V6 out of the car, put an LS in it, turbocharge the LS, make a whole standalone system for it, and you're still gonna use the stock transmission? What's wrong with you? Why would you do that? Now, obviously I'm exaggerating that a little bit, but that's how I feel reading some of the comments. One of the biggest concerns of this build is not the rust that I will be fixing eventually. It is the use of the stock transmission. So if I haven't mentioned it in a while, this build, for at least now, I'm not gonna say this is permanent, but for now, we are going to be using the stock Muncie 4-speed transmission. Now, there was a couple people that wanted to know why I would do that. Why not just start off with an F40 swap? So there's a few reasons. Obviously, the first one, the biggest one, is just budget. The car doesn't need an F40 swap to just run and drive. And it seems like people are under the impression that every time we go to take off in this car, it's gonna be like a 5,000 RPM clutch dump, because people are like, man, that thing's just gonna shatter behind it. And it's like, you know, you guys can like feather the clutch and take off nice and easy and roll into it for a while. It doesn't need to be hot rodded every time you get in it. I know that's kind of contradictory to what we do on the channel here. But as far as granny shifting and not double clutching like we should, this thing should, theoretically, be able to live behind this for a while as long as it's not super abused. Now, one of the other reasons that I want to use this transmission is that I know everything works in it. I don't have to get or make mounts for the transmission. I don't have to change the axles. I don't have to do any of that. I don't have to deal with the shift cables. None of that. I know that this already goes right back into the car and it works perfectly. So I mentioned in one of the videos that just finding an F40 transmission is like, I mean, obviously there's a bunch of deals to be had, but the ones that I've seen, this kind of goes back to like the video where I was talking about LSs. A lot of people only ever see them for $1,000, to where I don't think I've ever paid more than a few hundred for one. But all the F40 transmissions that I've seen were all from a junkyard. I did see one guy that was parting a car out. No, the car was crashed. He wouldn't part it out. He wanted to sell it whole. And that was $1,000. All the junkyards I've seen want $600 to $700 for them, which I just don't feel like paying right now. And then on top of that, we need the mount kit, axles, gotta mess with shift cables a little bit, things like that. At the end of the day, it's $1,000, $1,500, depending on how you go about things, that I just don't really want to spend right now. Do I think that that's a better solution than using the stock transmission? 100%. But I would like to use this to see what it'll do. And then the third and probably most interesting reason to use the stock transmission is just to get the data. I've tried looking up like an actual torque spec that these things can handle, and I haven't found anything. There's a bunch of speculation on all the forums. They can handle 200 foot-pounds, they can handle 350 foot-pounds, which is the one that I see the most. But I haven't found any like real-world data on people using these things. I did see one video of a guy with the 5-speed behind a supercharged 3800, and he cracked the bell housing. So I mean, there's that. But as far as the Muncie 4-speed, I haven't found a whole lot. So I think it would just be cool to use it, see what it'll hold up to, start gentle, and work our way up to being more aggressive. Who knows? I mean, it could shatter immediately, or it could, you know, last a year or two. So that's kind of why I want to use the stock transmission, at least for now. Down the road, 100%, I would love to put an F40 transmission in it. Those are 6-speed transmissions. They're still manual. A lot of people have asked why I don't just put a 4T60 or a 4T80 in it. I do not want to put an automatic transmission in this car. Which is weird, because I put an automatic transmission in everything else that people are like, man, you should put a manual in it. Like the RX-7 here, I've had a lot of people say, man, you should put a 6-speed in that. You should put a TKO in it. And it would be cool, but I prefer this car as an automatic. With the Power Glide, it's sweet. But this car is a little bit more drag-oriented. It's like street strip, I guess. So I like having the automatic in that. Same with the Monte Carlo. That's going to get a full manual Turbo 400 with a brake, eventually. I've been having some stupid thoughts lately about putting off the build on that and putting all that money towards this so that I could get this done. I don't know. I have a lot of stupid thoughts. Probably like using the stock transmission. But yeah, that's something that I just wanted to address, because There have been a lot of people that are just like, man, you're such an idiot, a dumb doofus, buffoon, baboon, you loon, using the stock transmission, what's wrong with you? So I wanted to explain that a little bit. Part of it is me just being cheap, yes. The other part is just, I'm very curious what it'll actually handle. And who knows, maybe a bunch of people will respond to this saying that they've used it, it handled this much. I have seen a lot of people say that they put a small block Chevy in them with the stock transmissions and it held up fine, but they don't say what's done to the small block, what's like how much power it's making, anything like that. So if they took like a stock like 85 C10 350 and plopped in it, that thing's making like what, 190 horsepower. I'm not saying that this thing's going to be making 1,000 horsepower. Everybody hears turbo LS and thinks it's going to be making gobs of horsepower, just gobbling power. And I think realistically, if this thing makes like 450, 500 horsepower, that's plenty for this thing. Like, actually, because Jess, my wife, is going to be driving this quite a bit, I don't know if I want it to have that much horsepower, because these are little 215 tires. And you know that these cars are kind of notorious for like lift off oversteer, snap oversteer, things like that. It's definitely going to be making very low boost, and it's kind of a detuned engine. It has 862 heads instead of the 243s. I took those off and put them on James Brown over there. And it has the dished pistons. So it's still around 9.5 to 1 compression. The engine itself, with the sloppy stage 2 cam, is probably in the neighborhood of like 350, 400 horsepower, give or take, at the crank. So throwing 5 pounds of boost on top of that, it'll maybe 450 horsepower, 470. So it's nothing like groundbreaking, but it could be transmission breaking. And that's kind of what I'm curious to find out. And it's not like it's going to be making a bunch of torque right out of the hole. I'm hoping we can get the, actually, to be honest, a centrifugal would be perfect for this. That way it makes like not shit for low end torque and low end power. And it makes it all up here, where once things are going, they're already moving. There's a lot less likely chance to break an axle or an input shaft or anything like that. That's kind of where I think that a 2.5 inch exhaust might help us a little bit. Think of it as like when you're spraying a hose and you put your finger over the end of it and it sprays out a lot harder. When you neck down the exhaust pipe, that flow has to speed up to get the same volume through, you know what I mean? So I think a 2.25 versus a 2.5, a 2.25 would spin the turbine a little bit quicker, which would make it spool up a little bit quicker, which would make the power a little bit quicker. This is all just my delusional thoughts, but I'm thinking that a slightly bigger exhaust will make it take a little bit longer to spool that up, because it has to kind of fill the exhaust pipe a little bit, and then it can start to spin the turbo. I don't know, but that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. So yeah, just wanted to discuss that real quick, because there was quite a few people who were just baffled by me using the stock transmission. So yeah, it's just, don't want to spend the money, curious what it'll do, and I know everything works right now. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. If you want to help support the channel, merch is in the link below. We got a bunch of different shirts and hoodies and stickers and stuff. So go check that out. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing and clicking that bell. I'll see you next time.